Welcome back to another episode of the Sex and Spanglish podcast. I'm your hostess, Ana Lopez. I'm a sexologist and sex coach, and I am here to help you enjoy sex sin vergüenza. So let's get started. I've been noticing some themes amongst the women that I work with, and I've pulled out three common themes. So I want you to see as I say these, which one that you fall under, that you most resonate with. I will also say that you may resonate with more than one, and that is okay. So, first up is the woman who believes that sex is a chore, right? The second is that you used to have a really good sex life, and now it's just not as good as it used to be. Maybe you're having sex less often, or it's just not as enjoyable. And then the third woman is the woman who is kind of like an undercover freak. And what I mean by this is you have a lot of ideas of what you would like your sex life to look like, but you're too embarrassed or you feel too awkward to do anything about it. So you just kind of push it to the back of your mind. So again, I want you to see which of these categories you fall into. You might fall into more than one, and that's okay. And you might find that you used to be in one category, but now you're in another, and that's okay too. So I'm going to spend the rest of this episode diving into each one of these and explaining the unique problems that each of these women face on a day-to-day basis when it comes to their sex life. So the first step is a woman who thinks that sex is a chore, right? You likely have little to no libido, and you make that mean that something is wrong with you, something is wrong with your body, your mental state, or maybe that something is even wrong with your relationship or your partner specifically. You're probably chronically exhausted, you're super tired all the time, sex is the last thing on your mind. Your schedule is also probably super jam-packed, right? So maybe you have like the kids and then they're in extracurricular activities and you're, I don't know, on the PTA or you work multiple jobs, right? Like there's a lot going on in your life that is leading you to be chronically exhausted and tired. And then that puts sex on the back burner. You feel obligated to have sex, right? So you think that in order to be a good partner, good wife, good girlfriend, etc., that you should be having sex. And so you're guilting yourself for not wanting to have sex or not having sex when you don't have sex or say no to sex. You also feel guilty or maybe bad that you don't initiate sex as often or at all. Or you feel like you have to say yes to sex when your partner initiates. You also probably track how often you're having sex to see if you're normal, if your relationship is normal, right? You're also doing this to avoid arguments with your partner so that you can have basically like you can have like screenshots of like, no, we had sex on February 12th and then we had it again on March 1st. So you can't tell me that it's been like, I don't know how many months, whatever, right? You want to avoid arguments with your partner because you are fearful that they might leave you, they might cheat on you, right? So you do everything that you can to kind of lessen the kind of like cushion the what is the phrase that I'm looking for? Kind of like cushion the blow, right? Of like, you know that this is a touchy topic for your partner. And so even though you don't really want to have sex, you're trying to make it as small of a problem as possible. You're really trying to manage your partner's thoughts and feelings about this by, tracking things, having screenshots, things like that. You're also trying to avoid sex at all costs. So you're monitoring what you say to your partner, what you wear, what you do, because you don't want your partner to get the wrong idea. You don't want them to think that you actually want to have sex, right? You don't want to like put out that vibe when you're like, no, I don't want to have sex. Please no, right? You're also likely experiencing some form of disconnection. So during sex, this could look like waiting for it to be over, just lying there, like starfishing it out, right? Maybe not enjoying it. You're thinking about other things while you're having sex, or you're spending the entire time wondering or worrying why, if your partner is enjoying themselves or not. When are they going to come? you're trying to like fake it so that they'll hurry up. You're trying to do things to make them come, even though you're not really into it. You're just like, can you fucking hurry up and get off of me already? Like, I want this to be done and over with, right? So you're having sex, but your mind is like elsewhere. You're not present and in the moment. And then outside of sex, right? So when you're not having sex, there's disconnection because you feel like you're alone in the relationship. So whether that be, the parenting, right? So maybe you're like the primary parent. You're doing most of the kids things, the bath time, the homework, the sports, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe household duties. Maybe you're doing a ton or a majority of the cooking and cleaning and all of those things. Maybe like the household management, right? So like I don't know, maybe the bills being paid or the groceries or whatever else it might be. You might also feel like there's little to no intimacy outside of sex, right? So you're like, oh, well, the only time he wants intimacy is when he wants to have sex, right? But you're like, there's no kissing, there's no hugging, there's no cuddling, there's very little touching outside of sex. So there's that disconnection there between you and your partner. And then there's also the back and forth between resentment and guilt. So there's resentment for your partner for wanting to have sex, even when you want to have sex as well. And then there's also this like, all he wants is sex for me type of thing. So I see resentment showing up in two different ways. So on one hand, it shows up as envy. So you're envious that your partner actually wants to have sex because you wish that you also wanted to have sex, but you don't want to have sex and that pisses you off. So you're envious of your partner. The other way that I see resentment showing up is that you're like, well, fuck, all he wants is sex for me, right? Going back to that disconnection outside of the bedroom where you're like, okay, well, I'm doing all this shit and you're not helping me or you're barely helping me. And then you want to have sex, like, what the fuck, right? So then you feel resentment because of that. And then you oscillate between that and guilt. So you feel guilty that you feel this way. You feel guilty that you feel resentful. You feel guilty that you feel envious. You feel guilty that you don't want to have sex, and then you force yourself to have it. And then you spend all night stewing about why the fuck do I keep having sex when I don't want to have it? And then you're like, well, if I don't have it, then he might leave me or he might cheat on me. And then what am I going to do? And this, that, and the other, right? So it's like very much this like back and forth. Okay. So that is for the woman who feels like sex is a chore. The second person, where you used to have really good sex and now it's like, or it's just not good at all, or it's not the same and you're just not feeling it anymore. This is likely what you're dealing with. So you used to have an amazing sex life and something changed. Not just the sex. I'm not talking about the sex here. The sex did change, but as a result of something. So this could be, and this is, I'm going to share some examples, but these are not the only reasons that this happens. But some common themes are some type of medical event. So maybe you had a hysterectomy. Maybe you had a major surgery of some kind, right? It doesn't even have to be like reproductive organ related, right? Like it could be like, I don't know, you had back surgery or some shit, right? It could be some major medical event, either for you or your partner. It could even be a major medical event for a parent or a loved one that you are caring for, right? It could be, and it doesn't have to be a medical event either. It could be like a big event of some kind. So this could also be like a divorce, either yourself or in the family. It could be married. Maybe you got married to your partner and shit went, sideways. Maybe there's a death in the family or a birth in the family. So maybe y'all had kids or, maybe you had a child that died, right? And if that is the case, I am so sorry for your loss. But maybe you had another death in the family, right? Maybe there was a job loss or a job change of some kind. Maybe there was a change of living arrangement. So maybe you moved across country. Maybe you moved into a bigger house or a smaller house, right? Or you had people move in with you or you moved in with other people. Or there was a trauma of some kind, right? These are all examples of events that happen in your relationship, in your lives, that can definitely have an impact on your sex life. So, when you are in the position where sex used to be really good and now it's not because something changed that had this, like, it was like a catalyst for your sex life changing, you were spending all of your time living in the past and thinking about how great sex used to be. And I totally understand that, right? I love personally being like in the past in the sense of like nostalgia and like all of that. Like I love that feeling, but that's not what y'all are doing. You all are thinking about the past and be like, oh my God, what can I do to get back there? You're trying to get back. It's like you're trying to get back to the body you had at 18 before kids, right? That's what you're doing. You're trying to get back to a place where you cannot get back to. To be clear, this does not mean that you can't go back to having amazing sex, but what you're trying to do is like create a time machine and go back in time, and that is not reality, right? That is not a possibility. You're also ignoring that you're in a different season now. If you had a surgery of some kind, the surgery happened. We cannot change that. The divorce happened, the marriage happened, the death or the birth happened, the job loss or change, the change of living arrangements, the trauma, etc. Whatever event it was happened. We cannot change that. We cannot change the other smaller things that happened between then and now. It happened, right? That is circumstantially true. And you're completely ignoring the phase of life that you are in now, the phase of life that your partner is in now, the phase that your relationship is in now. And that doesn't mean that it's worse or bad or wrong, but it is different. And that is okay. And it is something that we need to acknowledge. But you're spending all of your time back in, I don't know, 98, whatever it is, right? You are spending your time back in years that have already passed trying to get back there instead of focusing on the present. You're spending all your time attempting to do what worked back then and then getting mad and frustrated when it doesn't work. And so I want to share this analogy of what it is like. How do I say this? I want to share this analogy of like what's happening here. So when a man, and I say a man because this is often talked about, right? This is kind of like the stereotype, right? When we say that a man is going out and buying a sports car, or he's going out and trying to party like he's in his 20s, right? We say that he is having a midlife crisis. That is essentially what you are doing. I'm not saying you're having a midlife crisis, but you are trying to get back to where you were back then. When a man goes out and buys a sports car he can't afford, or try to go out and party like he's in college, he's trying to relive his 20s, 30s, whatever it is, right? You are trying to relive the past version of you, which in and of itself is not a problem, but it's not solving for the problem that you have, which is sex right now is not what you want it to be, right? Again, you're ignoring what's present and true for you now. So maybe you have kids now. Your body has changed. Your partner's body has changed. And I don't only mean physically. Like maybe you've gained or lost weight. Maybe your partner gained or lost weight. Maybe your body looks a little bit different, right? But it also is functioning a little bit differently, right? Especially as you age, you may have more aches and pains, right? Maybe medical conditions presented themselves. These are all changes that have happened that are true for you now and that you need to acknowledge when it comes to having and enjoying sex. Your emotional state may have changed. It has likely changed, right? You maybe have had a career change, anything, right? We need to recognize what's present and true for you now in order to help you enjoy sex sin vergüenza. You are also likely not giving yourself space to explore things you might like right now, even though you spend hours researching ideas. So what this looks like is you're Googling like crazy, you're on TikTok, you're on Facebook, asking in a bunch of different Facebook groups, asking shit anonymously, right? You're trying to find ways to get sex back to what it used to be. I see this post at least once a week on Facebook. Shit is wild, right? At least once a week, if not more, of where people are trying to be like, what do I need to do, without fully understanding the problem. But if that is you, if you are posting that, you are in this category of your sex used to be good and you're trying to get back to where it was and you're spending all your time living in the past. Okay? What is happening when you are doing this, when you're researching the ideas, is you're trying to find ideas, things that you can do to implement into your sex life with completely ignoring of like, what might I like, right? You're trying to get ideas from other people versus going inward of like, what might I like right now? What do I already like, right? Are there things that I'm doing now that I do like, even though my sex life doesn't look the way that I want it to look? You're also spending a lot of time feeling ashamed, defective, frustrated, or down on yourself that your sex life used to be great and now it's not. And you're worried you're never going to get it back. You're worried that this is going to be your life forever. And you may potentially be worried that, you know, your marriage isn't going to last, your relationship's not going to last just because it's just not what it used to be, okay? You're also stuck on why this happened and why what used to work isn't working anymore. You're like spinning your wheels in your brain trying to figure out what the fuck happened. And while it is important to explore that, I think y'all are doing it a little too much. You're doing it like to a fault, right? It's doing you a disservice at this point. So that is the person where sex used to be good and it's not good anymore. The third person is the person who feels shameful or embarrassed or awkward when it comes to sex. You're having one type of sex, but you secretly want a different kind of sex. You're too afraid or too embarrassed to admit it because you're worried what your partner might think, what they might say. Maybe they might go and tell other people. And you feel like you're doing something wrong when you have sex, even if you're married, right? So it's like quote unquote okay by your parents' standards, but you're like, oh, I still feel like I'm gonna get in trouble, right? You don't allow yourself to admit your desires, even to yourself. You keep them as like this dirty little secret. Your fear of judgment and rejection is stopping you from sharing these things or admitting these things, even to yourself. You are afraid that your partner might change how they see you or how they treat you if you bring it up. Maybe they might even leave, right? You are afraid that your friends or your partner might think you're weird. They might stop being friends with you. You're afraid that you'll be seen as the freaky one and guys will only want you for sex and that you'll end up alone. And you're afraid that it'll get back to your parents and other loved ones somehow, and then they won't want to hang out with you or invite you to family parties or allow them around their kids or whatever it is. Maybe it'll even get back to church, right? If that's something that you do. There's a lot of all or nothing thinking with this type of person. It's really like a point of no return thinking. So if you try something, then you think you'll have to do it forever, especially if your partner likes it, right? So there's like this fear of doing it because of what might happen. You think that you have to go from like missionary with the lights off to like orgies in a dungeon 5 nights a week while creating OnlyFans content. Like there is a lot in between those two things and you're just seeing like one or the other. You're also assuming that you know how your partner will react. So again, that he might judge or reject you. You've convinced yourself that he would never be into whatever it is that you're thinking of. And you imagine that if he is, he'll judge you either way. So you never have the conversation and you don't even know how to bring it up. So you just give up before you even start. You force yourself to stay in relationships where you aren't sexually compatible. You tell yourself that sex shouldn't be a deal breaker and you'd be stupid to leave a great guy over something as trivial or as superficial as sex. You don't want to raise your body count. You don't want to date again. And you also confuse sexual compatibility with liking sex with someone. Those are two different things. So, compatibility is knowing your desires, your partner's desires, and both parties being willing to come to an agreement or a compromise with what your sex life will look like together. Incompatibility is one or both parties are not willing or able to come to an agreement regardless of preferences. So you have difficulty asking for what you want. You haven't had much experience thinking about or sharing what you want or what you think you're supposed to want or what you should want. You expect to be turned down, so you stay silent, and you carry a lot of shame and self-judgment about your desires. So all of what I just shared is for the person who I like to call the undercover freak. Like, y'all are secretly really into sex, but there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and awkwardness around sex, which hides that freak flag from flying. Okay. So again, we have the woman who thinks that sex is a chore, right? This is a belief or a feeling that you have. Then there's the person who sex used to be good and it's not anymore. And then we have those undercover freaks where you're feeling shameful and embarrassed and awkward about sex. So you kind of avoid or like dismiss your desires. So I want to know, which one of these did you fall into? Was there some overlap? Did you fall into more than one of these categories? I want to know all the details. I am very nosy. I want to know all the things. So you can share one of two ways. You can send me an email at Ana, at sexandspanglish.com, or you can DM me on social media. So I am on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, at Sex and Spanglish. And again, it's Spanglish, not Spanish. And so send me a DM, email me, let me know which category you fell into. That is all for today. I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye.